All right, all right. The weather dominated the pregame chat, but when push came to shove, the boys got the job done. Not one, but two set-piece goals and a heroic super sub intervention by Christian Pulisic. I'm Heath Pearce alongside your favorite, or your other favorite, former men's national team player, Jimmy Conrad, and the Stars and Stripes are one step closer to clinching a World Cup berth. The Qué Golazo USA versus Honduras recap begins right now. Now, everybody, you know the drill, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to this in podcast form. Qué Golazo needs your help to grow. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and get busy in the comment section. We always want to hear from you. Make this a two-way conversation. We're not talking at you. We're talking with you. And for those of you listening to audio only, please make sure you follow Qué Golazo wherever you get your podcasts and take a minute to leave a rating and a review. Every little bit helps. Jimmy Conrad, what is going on, man? You were hyped.
USA. Of course I'm hyped. It was a badly needed win for the boys.
Against a badly team.
Against a badly team. Very true. And we scored on a set piece, Heath. I said on the podcast in the preview, I had a couple goals for the team. It was a score in the first half and a score on a set piece. And they did both at the same time. In the 7th minute, Weston McKennie, thank you very much. Keylor and Acosta dropping in dimes after there was a lot of criticism of Christian Pulisic for taking bad set pieces. And guess what? Acosta stepped up. Pulisic didn't even start. I don't even know where you want to get started in this game. But maybe the big conversation piece, Heath, is Christian Pulisic. Is he better for us as a sub than he is as a starter? Whoa, I can't believe that came out of my mouth. What are you saying, Heath Pearce?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's certainly an argument to it. I don't think permanently, but I do think that there is when the time is right to use him when you need to use him. Obviously, over three windows, you have the perfect or 3 match days, you have the perfect opportunity to sub him out or manage his minutes and not start him every game. But I do like the super sub route. I think he's too good to not, because when you saw him on the field, you saw the danger he creates when he's in form. I think we need to do whatever it takes to get him back into peak form, because when he's in peak form, make him a starter. But if he's not in top form, then we shouldn't be afraid to put him on the bench sometime.
It's what's crazy to me is that we actually have the depth to be able to put him on the bench. Now, again, the caveat around this whole game is that Honduras is not a very good team. So all that has to be taken into consideration. But the guys still have to go out there. We played in these games too, where the opponent wasn't great, but you still have to go out there and perform. Because the counter argument to this is, if you can't perform against a bad team, they're not going to trust you to play against a good one. So the De La Torres, who got his first World Cup qualifying start, Reggie Cannon, nice to see him getting an appearance for the team on the right side. Jordan Morris getting the start. 7 changes to this lineup, Heath Pearce. That felt like a lot.
You don't like that, Jimmy. I know you don't like that.
I don't in general. I don't in general, but it felt like it was needed, and I'm glad that Greg Berhalter, that is, for everybody just joining us, Greg Berhalter, the manager of the national team, making that decision and giving some guys chances to prove themselves. Because when I hearken back to World Cup qualifying campaigns, sometimes managers of the previous iterations of this would stick with the same guys over and over. And we saw it when we didn't qualify for the World Cup in 2018. The same team that beat Panama 4-0 in Orlando was the same exact team that Bruce elected to start in Trinidad and didn't work out for us. Sometimes you need a little bit of new blood, guys that can see it, know that they got a little hunger to it. And I thought those were some good changes. Some of them kind of bold, leaving Pulisic and Aronson on the bench. I thought was pretty bold, but great performance by the guys. Scoring the early goal, I think, took a lot of pressure off of us.
Do you think the result vindicated the decision to play in St. Paul? I mean, it just seems, we're obviously seeing reports starting to come out of two, if not more, Hondurans needing IVs for hypothermia. You think about the performance that we had there against this team. And look, Honduras were very bad. They were poor. They weren't organized. They didn't know how to press. There was gaps everywhere. There was free passes everywhere, between the lines, behind the lines, everywhere, right? The U.S. knew that from the very, very start and capitalized on that, which I think all due respect to the U.S. team. However, it makes me think about, what if they played this in Florida or Arizona or California or somewhere where, okay, perhaps there are some Honduran fans, but you're telling me that Honduran side against the U.S. couldn't put up more than 3 goals where the pitches and the conditions are normal. I would expect an even more dominant performance.
Yeah, the longer that game went 0-0, that the more we were all going to get nervous, and the players would have got maybe a little anxious and tense as well, knowing that they were the better team. So scoring first, no matter if we scored that in minus 12 degrees or whatever with the wind chill, or down in Florida where it's nice and balmy right now, or California or wherever else they wanted to play this game, wouldn't have changed what you're saying. We score in that first 10 minutes, and now we're in complete control. Maybe the counter for that from a Honduran perspective is, if we had played in a different climate, maybe we could have kept that game a little bit longer at 0-0. But they were already a train wreck coming into this game. Now, the hypothermia stuff is very scary, and I think should be taken into account that they should never consider doing this again. It's just not safe for the players. It's not safe for the fans. It's not safe for anybody. It's just not safe. And so, yeah, it might have sounded cheeky when they thought about it, when they were planning the schedule, but it wasn't so cheeky, I think, when they got executed. That said, the players went out there and put out a performance that we needed if we're just focusing on the 90 minutes. And I'm thankful for that, because now I feel like we're only 3 points away from qualifying for the World Cup.
Well, let me ask you this then, Jimmy. If it was against another opponent, say Mexico, would you be more open to a St. Paul match? I mean, considering it's Honduras, I expect us, it's a home game. I expect us to win that game, regardless of where you played that, right? But if it was somebody else, do you see the advantage there of the thinking? Or is it just, I mean, St. Paul's just an extreme decision compared to a Columbus or a Cincinnati or, somewhere else. Well, and having said that, we saw the snow game in Snow Classico in Denver back
Costa
in the day.
Rica,
So there's been some of those decisions to create a home field environment. Obviously, the weather plays a role into that, but this seemed a bit over the top.
Extreme. It was extreme. And I know the Canada tried to do the same thing to Mexico as well, and it worked to great effect. They got the result that they were looking for. And I think at the end of the day, I assume U.S. Soccer, the coaching staff, that sucks. We don't want anybody to get hurt or anything like that. But we got the result that we were looking for. And in some ways, this probably validates their decision to put it in a cold market. I don't want to see it again, unless we're preparing for a World Cup in Antarctica or something. I just don't think it's necessary. Of course, global warming means there probably won't be any Antarctica here in the next 20, 30 years. Conversation for another time. But job done. 3 points.
Yeah, job done. And very, very close. Obviously, I think we're at 99. I think the odds were going into this game at like 99 point something percent that the U.S. or 98% the U.S. qualifies for the World Cup. I think we're even closer to that now. Obviously, it's not you don't have to be rocket scientist to understand what that means on the points front. But Jimmy, you mentioned 7 changes, and changes are necessary at times. Some of those were for injury. Some of those were squad rotation. Luca de la Torre, an example of that. Do you think we're closer to an 11 now, or do you think we're further away now that we've seen a performance like this? One of the better performances, I think. Again, it's so hard to take this into consideration because the courage and the fight and all those things. I just go, where is that when we're playing away? Where is that fight and that scrap and that courage when we're playing against an opponent like Canada, where you're playing in Canada, and yes, it's away from home, but you should be able to rise to that challenge. Where is that fighting spirit? And why does it just show up against a Honduras at home or a Jamaica at home, where you know that you're going to dominate the run of play? Where is that when it's difficult times, right? Not just in the good times where it's convenient.
No, I would say that I think some things got solved for me in some ways. Maybe they're inching closer to being solved, not only in my mind, but also in Greg Berhalter's mind, and maybe the team can see it as well. It feels like the best pairing for our center backs is Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson. They just seem to have a nice rapport with each other. If Chris Richards steps up, I think Walker Zimmerman is the one that makes the difference. Not only him scoring tonight and being the emotional and leader and the captain, but also I just think we lacked what he brings to the table against Canada, which was some organization, some leadership, especially when things aren't going well. How quickly, and I say this when I coach, and I'm sure you do it as well, when we lose the ball, when things start to get chaotic, how quickly can we get back under control? How quickly can we get organized again so we can reset and play from there? And I felt like we never really found that rhythm. And that's probably more due to what Canada brings to the table and us not being able to solve problems quickly during that game, or playing safe when we should have been playing forward. But that's that we can get back into that game, or maybe never at this point. Let's just move forward, right, Heath Pearce? But I think that got solidified for me, that Walker Zimmerman's become a very important cog to the back line in particular. Reggie Cannon, I thought, was nice and solid. Didn't take too many risks there. So I thought that's a performance that, to your point now, maybe is he the number 2 to Dest? Is he, can we spot start him based on who the opponent is? I like De La Torre a lot. I thought what I really liked about De La Torre, that maybe Musa, well, I like Musa a lot too. This is a tough one. But De La Torre, I liked when he went wide. And sometimes he went a little bit wider than I think Musa does to create those triangles in a little bit more of a possession-based way. Because we know that Yunus Musa, who we both adore, likes to get the ball and kind of run with it a lot. He likes to break the lines with his running. And not to say that De La Torre can't do that, but I just think he's looking for the game in a different way. And if you know you're going to have a lot of possession against a particular team, De La Torre could be a good option. And if I'm Gianluca Busio right now, I'd be so bummed that I didn't get called into this, because this could have been his starting spot if he had been around and available for this one. So,
well,
but everything else, I don't know.
By the way, this is the whole Musa argument is the same as with Zimmerman. Zimmerman came in because of Tim Ream. Tim Ream hasn't been called in since.
Right.
Like there's been a pure replacement for that. So
it kind of John Brooks as well, right?
Yeah, John Brooks as well. And you look at Busio, same thing. COVID keeps him back. And now all of a sudden, you got somebody kind of knocking on the door for your spot. But I like that level of competition. I like the type of player that he is. He seemed good on the fly, good in transition, really opened up the game for us, made some really, really good decisions. But overall, a really solid performance. I have to give credit to this group. I know that they were playing against a subpar team and subpar conditions, but they found a way to get it done. First half, especially, very convincing, very dominant. Second half was a little bit scrappier and uglier and just sort of not a lot of rhythm to it. But that's how it is in some of those games. And Honduras, who are looking more and more exposed, I think the U.S. did a good job of capitalizing on that, on just the vulnerabilities of the team. Jimmy, do you think? By the way, let me ask you this: set pieces. Is it worth? Is it worth having Keylor Acosta on the field because of his quality of set pieces? Because you've obviously seen we need to find a way to win games, or maybe he's even a sub where you need to find a way to win games and get results, even if you're not playing well. And set pieces is a major way to do that. Is he somebody that moves up your ranking in terms of finding a place for him on the field, or at least circumstantially a place for him on the field, even if it's a substitution?
Yeah, that's a great question, Heath. I think that it feels more circumstantially. Again, the marking, if we look at it from a defensive perspective, the marking by Honduras was, what's the word I'm looking for? Shambolic on set pieces. So again, you just have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt that this Honduran team is all over the place. There's a lot of finger pointing, people not maybe doing what they should have or whatever the responsibilities were. So as much as I appreciate that we finally scored on a set piece and we made it 3 set piece goals ultimately today, Keylor Navas feels more circumstantial. That I'm still with Tyler Adams. My only concern with Tyler Adams is sometimes, and I remember Michael Bradley doing this, he tried to do too much. He also
gets hurt a lot.
He does, so that fits in well for Keylor Acosta. I think it was an important game for Acosta in general because it allowed him to be the guy. There was no, it wasn't like him or Adams. Adams was out, so he could be the guy and almost relax in some ways when you don't have that kind of pressure over your shoulder. And he needed a good performance to kind of maybe win back. I think the team trusts him inherently, but the fans, to think, hey, this is a guy we can trust and rely on. So I thought Acosta put in a good performance. A lot of guys did. And Weston McKennie, you brought him up on HQ. I thought he was really solid. And every time I saw him step up and get the ball, he was in pockets of space. I'm like, I wonder if Christian Pulisic, because I think this is going to be the big conversation piece for our recap here. But does Weston McKennie pick up the ball a little bit more and have space to run into because Pulisic isn't standing or Brendan Aronson aren't standing in the same spaces that he'd like to run into because those guys are tucking in instead of going out wide? I just felt like he was picking up the ball and running, and not that he doesn't do that before. Maybe I'm trying to look into something that doesn't exist, but
no, but he was certainly more intentional. Like
he was, wasn't it? I felt like there was something there
with his movement. Every time he came into a space, it was because he knew where the answer was out of another place. It wasn't just to get the ball and get his touches and those types of things, which I saw against Canada. This was much more intentional. It had a purpose to everything. And that purpose, obviously, again, you're playing against a team that's all spread out. And so the switches of play, the combination play, all those things could happen a little bit slower and you can get away with a little bit more. But it just seemed like he had some intention in everything that he was doing, which, like I said, the thing about Weston McKennie that always drives me crazy is he kind of drinks his own Kool-Aid at times, where he has a bad performance, he works hard, he grinds hard, he has a good performance, he kind of drinks his own Kool-Aid, and then he has a bad performance. And not a bad, and I don't mean good, bad, but like the level that you see him when he's good, he's not always at. And I would love to see him find that consistency at that level, because if he does, then he's certainly one of our best 3 players all the time. But right now, he's one of our best 3. And then you're like, kind of indifferent, and then best 3, and then indifferent. I'd like to just see a little bit more of that consistency from him.
No, I'm with you on that. And I'm hopeful that this is a continued step in the right direction. He has been in great form for both club and country. And I'm excited to see how he continues to flourish and take on more responsibility. It's interesting. I also want to bring up Timo Weah. I thought he was excellent. I think that he provides a different look for us in a way that an Aronson or maybe potentially even a Gio Reyna doesn't. I think he likes to get in behind. He can stretch the defense in a way that maybe some of our other players can't, and do it consistently. And he gets to the end line a lot. Whether he's driving at guys or whipping balls in. The consistency.
Well, this is my thing, Jimmy. He draws a lot of corner kicks. He draws a lot of free kicks. He gets in these spaces. But if you don't have, if Christian Pulisic is taking them, and we've seen how poor those have been, and other players take them, we've seen how poor those have been. It's rarely getting past the first man, really whipping it in, rarely whipping it spin, with pace, and all the things that make set pieces so dangerous. We haven't had that. So when a team Weah draws you something and creates an advantage for you, do we have the quality now? One, obviously his run of play, his crosses, things like that are great because it just stretches teams, but also that set piece side, which is great.
No, it's true. I like Timo Weah. I think he is another one. Like, as I mentioned about Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman starting to really feel like they're owning that spot together. Timo Weah is starting to continue to emerge, I feel like, game by game. And because it's very similar to Walker Zimmerman, because they didn't play against Canada, you get to see him play today, and you're like, that's why we love this guy. That's why Timo Weah is so important to our team. That's why Walker Zimmerman is so important to our team. And I think that just strengthened their cause to be included in the 11 moving forward. So Timo Weah is another one. Ricardo Pepi, kind of quiet today. I feel like once he got hit in the face, everybody that's watching or listening, he seemed to not really shirk responsibility, but he just, sometimes it gets you out of your head a little bit. Maybe you lose a little bit of that focus when you get hit. It's Mike Tyson, the famous quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And Ricardo Pepi took one right to the kisser, relatively early. And I just don't feel like we saw a lot of him. I like Jordan Morris, though. I thought he was active. I thought he was busy. But I will say this, and this is something that I wish we could see this lineup against Canada. I just want to see De La Torre against a team that's a lot more organized. And can he help us spring the attack from there? I want to see Reggie Cannon have to defend Tejan Buchanan or eventually Afonso Davies. I want to see, I wanted to see Jordan Moore. Well, he did play against Canada, but Timo Weah against Canada. I just want to see more of that. And I wish, not that I wanted Honduras to be harder because I wanted to get all 3 points, but it's hard to know for sure. And I guess this gets back to your original question, Heath. Has this opened up more possibilities for our starting 11 as opposed to solidifying it? And I think Timo Weah in particular and Walker Zimmerman have done a lot better because they weren't around for the Canada game. This makes you really appreciate their value and what they do bring to the table.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the fact that we've seen a little bit more of a sample size, it's really hard to judge it off of this game, right? Luca De La Torre, it's hard to see, like, if you went down the line of any player, right, other than Jordan Morris, who I thought for the first 40 or so, 45 minutes, struggled to just find the game, not because of anything he wasn't doing, but the ball just wasn't going to him in spots that you want him to get the ball, right? There was a couple moments that he had, but outside of that, most of it was coming up the right side through Weah. You saw McKennie coming up through the middle, balls connecting through Pepe. He just wasn't as active. So you go, oh, okay, yeah, it wasn't that great of a performance, but it was just the way the game played out. It wasn't a poor performance. If you went like that across the board, you wouldn't find a single player that had a bad game or a poor game or was off
true.
in any way, shape, or form. Reggie Cannon, same thing, mostly in offensive positions, just overlapping to create space for Tim Weah, who was having a good game. Wasn't really doing much other than connecting the passes and doing all the little things well. And so it's hard to judge a game like this because we weren't pushed back. We weren't pinned back. There was no counterattacks. There was no dangerous moments. There was nothing for us to judge and say, hey, how does this team respond? Okay, bad turnover. How do we react? How do we, like you said, get into defensive positions? How are we pressing as a team against a team that can build up well or break lines of pressure through passing or dribbling that you're going to get against the Canada, that you're going to get against the Mexico, that you're going to get against teams that go to a World Cup. It's tough to judge that right now. So I'm not sure if we, like I said, I think the things you get closer to in a starting lineup, I agree with you that it's going to be your Zimmermans. It's going to be your Timo Weahs, at least circumstantially against teams that are going to sit back. You have somebody that runs the touch lines and whipping balls in that creates a little bit of something different. Again, I don't think Timo Weah is the answer always, but in the right circumstances against teams that are going to play us like that, for sure.
Yeah, well, apparently Ricardo Pepi broke his nose on that particular play. That's news to me, so hopefully he does okay. And I think anything could have broke your nose at that point because it's so goddamn cold. Now, Big Ugly Jim says Gio Reyna to midfield when he comes back and you keep Weah and Pulisic out wide. Well, Big Handsome Jim right here, Big Ugly Jim, says that I like that idea a lot. But to Heath's point, I do think it could be matchup based on our strengths and weaknesses, where we think we're going to pick up the ball, how we're going to hold the ball, and which collection of players is going to be the best fit moving forward, which obviously is what Greg gets paid the big bucks to figure out. I do like Timo Weah a lot more. I think he's starting to become more and more of a lockdown favorite for us to start because he does provide a couple different things. And if he's confident, we definitely see a much better version, like any player, of Timo Weah when that makes. But Gio Reyna coming back, what are your thoughts on that, Heath? Would you slot him a little bit more central? And if you do, that means you have to sacrifice potentially a Musa, because I feel like McKennie is another one that's automatic starter.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, that's a good problem to have. Again, I've yet to see Reyna play consistently with a striker that we want. We don't know what striker we want, right? We've seen Ferreira show flashes. We've seen Ricardo Pepi. I like when he's on the field. We've seen him play in the past with Zardes or whoever, or we've seen Zardes up there. We've seen Jordan Pefok, we've seen Daryl DK, we've seen Josh Sargent more often than not with a player like Reyna on the field. And so I've yet to see him play with somebody that's more technical. And how does he fit into the team, and how does he combine, and where does he create the threats? Because Gio Reyna is also not a great defender. He doesn't like to track back. He likes to stay forward more. He'll put in the shift, but he's not going to be like your Brendan Aronson type, or even a Timo Weah that's going to really, really put that pressure on players in transition and things like that. So he brings a different type of game to this national team. It's tough to say who's going to be sacrificed in the team. I mean, you go back a month ago and I'm like, dude, you got to start Brendan Aronson for every single game, because he's the one. And obviously he's the only one now who's played all 11 qualifiers, because he's important to the team in so many different aspects. But he was a sure starter to me. Now I'm like, okay, Timothy Weah is now proven something. And so everything happens so quickly and it's so fluid. It's tough to really see who's going to be fitting into this starting lineup. And there you go. There's the picture from Ricardo Pepi posting broken nose. I mean, that was really early on. And we actually, on HQ, Jimmy, we had Christina Uncle, or actually it wasn't on HQ, it was on the broadcast when they talked about how the assistant referee should have been able to go back and review that, seeing that there was a swung or like a wild arm that went into Ricardo Pepi's nose, which obviously affected his ability to play the rest of the game.
Let's be honest, that's a badge of honor. Brian McBride would be so proud of Brian Ching, Taylor Twellman, who anybody else? Yeah, it's a rite of passage to be a number 9. Josie Altidore, I'm sure they all have had broken noses along the way. So
did you, Jimmy?
Yeah, welcome to the club, Ricardo. Of course. Then I had concussions and I broke my jaw twice. A whole bunch of different stuff happening in this grill. Thankfully, I've kind of kept it somewhat organized. So Gordo says credit to Pepe for playing through that. That's a great shout. And obviously it does play with your mind. When you go up for headers, you're probably a little bit more reluctant because you don't want to get hit again in the face, especially when it's as cold as it was. Yeah. My big question for everybody listening, if you're just listening on podcast, hit us up at Qué Golazo Pod on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts. This could be a day later. It doesn't matter. But if you're watching on YouTube, do you think Christian Pulisic should start against Mexico in Mexico City the next time we reconvene as a team, given what you've seen now in his performance? Now, a lot can change over the month, but you just say unequivocally yes.
Yeah, I just think that he's the type of player, when I see him in that small sample size of 27 minutes that he played tonight, I just see that willingness to get his confidence back, right? And these are the ones where you can build your confidence in a game like against Honduras. And so if you can have that type of mentality, right? His body language looked different. Him getting that goal was such a huge thing for his confidence and what he's going through right now. And so
wait, pause.
Yeah.
Pause. Before you go any step further, I do actually have to ask. I was pretty pissed at Greg Berhalter for rolling him out as a super sub. This guy is known to be injury prone. It's cold.
I agree. You didn't need it.
And I was like, what?
We
didn't need it. We were in complete control of the game. We're up 2-0. Why risk it? And then he brought on Aronson. I felt the same way, even though Pulisic had scored. Like, what are we doing? Roll out Zardes or Areola or one of those guys. Let them see the game out. Why risk these guys getting injured? But clearly Greg is smarter than me because Pulisic scored and he needed some confidence and he got it. So go ahead and continue.
Jimmy, there's a lot of people screaming for the Pulisic super sub. Look, I think if we see performances at Chelsea, whether if he's playing and he's coming off the bench for Chelsea and he's got that positive energy where he wants to go forward, he wants to run at players. They hacked him from the first moment and he still stayed involved.
I know.
Again, I agree with you. I don't.
That gave me the whole thing. I was like, why are we? They're gonna crush him. They're gonna crush his little soul. And thankfully he scored, but still, I mean, he's getting fouled 5 seconds in. I was like, what? That's like makes it even more worse of a decision.
I don't think we needed him on the field. But it's probably one of those ones where you got to protect a player from himself because obviously he wants to be on the field. And maybe you should just say, hey, we've got this sort of game in the bag. But look, I mean, there was never really a threat from Honduras, but say there was. I mean, he brought the dagger right away on the second touch by scoring that goal. And again, I think it's a big confidence builder. He came out of that unscathed, uninjured, and now he has a goal to his name there. Again, that one being a super sub as well. And by the way, if you're watching this live right now, we're seeing Canada has just scored against El Salvador. If you're listening to this in podcast form, we apologize if you were trying to watch all the Concacaf games in rerun.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, look, if I see that kind of energy, whether he's playing 10 minutes or 20 minutes a game for Chelsea, I still think that you want him as a gamer against Mexico. But if not, then you bring him on the bench because that's where he's building his confidence. You create a little controlled environment for him to do his best. What do you think?
All right. I saw Chris Donahue in the chat. Shout out to Chris. He's one of the founders of the American Outlaws, and always great to see you. He said big games, big names. So he wants to see Pulisic start against Mexico. But the last time we played against Mexico in a World Cup qualifier, Pulisic did not start, and he came on. It was an excellent super sub and scored the game winner in that one. So I'm just saying we already have a sample size. We have some evidence of him being very threatening as a super sub against our biggest rivals. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Listen,
Listen,
I don't disagree. I just think, again, when I see the energy that he has, I get really excited. I saw the energy that I'm like, put him on the field. But like you also, there's an argument. Well, let's go through your player ratings then, Jimmy.
Well, no, before we get there, I just want to say we have a month before they reconvene for these games. March 24th is the game.
That's a long time.
And a lot can happen. And also, if he starts blowing up for Chelsea, I mean, he's going to be a no-brainer starter. But if he's kind of in the spot he is now, I mean, Chelsea was looking at Ousmane Dembele in this January transfer. I'm like, if they get Dembele, what does that mean for Pulisic's future? I don't really know. Anyway, I think that'll save it for the summer, obviously. But if he's not going to be involved in the plans, or he's not going to be used in a really meaningful way, not getting those minutes that we all want him to get,
I think he'll leave in the summer. I think he
will too. Now the big question is, where does he go? I mean, we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about that. But crazy.
With regard to this game, then give me your player ratings. I don't need all of them because I know they're going to fall somewhere into 7 to 9 range. But like, is there anybody that overperformed or underperformed, or somebody? We talked a little bit about Zimmerman solidifying himself even more. Weston McKennie in the context of this game. Who was your other one that you said bought themselves I
thought Timo Weah was good. Yeah. I thought Matt Turner. Can I give him a no rating because he didn't have to do anything. He just had to sit there, and I bet you he was freezing. I thought Anthony Robinson was actually pretty disciplined in his position. I didn't feel like he was getting out of control or
there was a few early moments in the first half when Honduras got further in the box that he looked a little bit out of sorts in terms of, do I press, do I drop? And if Honduras had a little more clever movement, they could have gotten something out of that. But other than that, I thought he was pretty solid as well.
Yeah, he's solid, right? Like a 6, 6 or 7. I thought Zimmerman would probably go up to an 8 because of his leadership ability. And, you have Kyoto and Albert Elise, who are really, really dangerous players, and they were pretty much non-existent the whole game.
I mean, they looked out. They did.
I'd say Miles. Miles.
Who's your man of the match then?
Oh man, I mean, Keylor Acosta, I think, deserves a shout for setting up the set pieces. Right. I thought Timo Weah was good. And Weston McKennie probably deserves a shout because he's the one that really unlocked all the early pressure. Didn't actually make us feel any pressure because we scored so early. I like Zimmerman, center back, looking at a center back. There's a couple options there. I don't know. What does everybody else think? I can make a strong argument for probably Acosta, McKennie, Weah, and Zimmerman, I think, would be the 4 that I would be looking at. De La Torre, I thought, was quietly solid too. I was actually pretty impressed with just the way he found pockets of space. And when the game looks easy, it's because these guys are making hard things look easy, and I really appreciated the guys that maybe were doing a little bit more of the thankless work and helping the team move forward. I will say though, because we were so excited we got set piece goals. Are you concerned at all because there was so much space between the Honduran lines that we didn't score a goal on the run of play?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there was opportunities and you could see momentum and swings where you could see a buildup happening, and you think a goal on the run of play could come of it. On one hand, we're like, hey, find a way to win by any means necessary. We win by set pieces. We're like, but is that good enough? Like, we're obviously never satisfied in the way that this team needs to be able to find ways to win games.
Right,
obviously, the circumstances change. You don't necessarily need a goal on the run of play when you've gotten 2 from set pieces, or then the third with Pulisic from set pieces. Well, so it is worrisome though. Go ahead.
Keep going. No, I was just saying, do you want to do, well, who's your player of the match?
I'm going to go with, man, I mean, the shout now, as people were saying, Keylor Acosta, just because of the danger of those balls and putting him in those positions that really gave the team the win. There is a shout for that, but I'm going to go with Weston McKennie just because I think that he set the tone. It was the header that he scored was fantastic. It was a top-level header. His timing, his contact on the ball, just the power that he redelivered it, he redirected it.
He's clutch, man. We talked about
things that he was doing.
He's got the clutch gene. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just hope that he keeps that even keel from here, which I don't think he will. But, it'll take him another game where I think he'll drink his own Kool-Aid a bit and kind of have those high highs and lows. I worry about that.
Not going to Mexico, though. I think he'll be properly motivated to go down to Mexico City and get a result. So I'm not too worried about that one. If we had, let's say, maybe Panama the next one where, okay, we should beat them if we're on our game, I could see him maybe falling back into that Kool-Aid drinking, but because it's Mexico, I think it's a different gravy for that particular game.
All right, that's fair. Well, look,
but
I'm being take a quick break. Yeah, we're being hopeful. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, Jimmy. When we come back, we got lots more to talk about. So stay right there. All right, everyone, we are back. I'm not sure if we're gonna roll our We got a little teaser for you guys at a certain point. I'm not sure if we're going to drop that in into this. But hey, listen, Mexico and Panama are locking horns right now as we speak. And we've discussed previously the result of that game will have major implications for the U.S. men's national team. So tomorrow, with the benefit of a night's sleep, to gather our thoughts, Jimmy and I will reflect on the Concacaf World Cup qualifying window as a whole. We'll reflect it. Sometimes it's nice to take a big picture look at a window. And sometimes 12 or 24 hours is enough time. Sometimes it's not. But we're going to give it to you anyway. It's a video exclusive, so keep your eyes peeled on the Qué Golazo YouTube channel for that. Now, Jimmy, talking a little bit about Costa Rica versus Jamaica. Obviously, Costa Rica get the goal from Joel Campbell, a name that we've been hearing for well over a decade now. Keylor Navas was unbelievable, which we talked about. And you had mentioned when I was saying, yeah, but Jamaica, they've got Mikel Antonio. You're like, yeah, but Costa Rica, they've got Keylor Navas. And obviously Keylor Navas came to the rescue and kept them into the game. Andre Blake saved a penalty. And then moments later, obviously, Joel Campbell scores to give him the 1-0. Keeps Costa Rica's hopes alive, albeit smaller, but still alive to get a win against Jamaica, officially knocking Jamaica out of contention for the World Cup. What are your thoughts on this game and obviously Costa Rica's chances of that sliver of hope of slipping into that fourth position?
Well, I think everything's riding on this Mexico-Panama result, which is currently 0-0 in the 30th minute in Mexico City. I think Panama, as I mentioned in the preview, probably just going for a draw, but already got a couple shots on goal. So maybe showing a little bit of poking and prodding to see if they can get anything and maybe nick a goal very similar to what Costa Rica did. Costa Rica now on 16 points. Panama has 17. So it can all be flipped around pretty quickly. I'm curious to see how Panama responds because they knew the result before kickoff. So I'm curious as to how they're going to approach this game and if they took any more risks to try to get the full 3 points to continue to have that gap over the Ticos. But I actually want to focus on Jamaica. They have so much talent, and they have always had a great collection of talent. And we could see it. Every time we play Jamaica, like, why aren't those guys better? And it wasn't due to anything individual. It just felt like collectively they were always lacking something.
It took a long time, though, to get their team going. They went through all that stuff where the players couldn't travel. And then by that time, they were already up against it. And they were chasing it by the time they had a team put together. Yeah.
I want to see the reggae boys. I mean, the spirit and enthusiasm that they have when they play, and the country would be so alive if they made the World Cup. So I'm really disappointed that they're not in contention at the very least, and that their journey's already over with 3 games left to play. So we'll see how they approach those last 3. But yeah, disappointed for them. Obviously, some special players there, and we'll see how they respond moving forward. But the Ticos, you can't sleep on Keylor Navas, man. I mean, another 1-0 result for them. They've scored 8 goals in 11 games, only given up 7 in 11 games. It's pretty remarkable. And Keylor Navas, as I mentioned, when he's between the sticks, you always feel like you have a chance. We've played like goalkeepers like that before. Tim Howard comes to mind, that you know that guy's behind you. And if you make a half mistake, he's going to save you. And I think he did it again tonight against Jamaica. And if the Ticos do end up sneaking into that 4th spot for qualification, he's going to be the #1 reason why. And for me, solidify why he might be the best player to ever come out of CONCACAF.
Wow. That's a solid shout, by the way.
It is. It's hard when you start to think about it.
Shout.
But I mean, he's done so much at the club level.
He's PSG.
Yeah,
he's
Champions League winner, multiple Champions League winner, got PSG to the first Champions League final in their history. Yep. And he still doesn't. He's still wildly underrated. Now I'm sure Alphonso Davies and hopefully an American can supplant him as my top choice at some point. But it's hard to go against Keylor Navas as one of the best to come out of CONCACAF, if not the best.
Well, I fully agree, Jimmy. And obviously, to shift over to the Canada game, this game's still running right now. Tiba Hutchinson scored the goal. I haven't had a chance to see it, but I'm hearing it was a bit of a
kind of comical
goal. Yeah. But this one I think would secure the berth if they were to win this, and that would give Canada would come out of what they won. Would this be 9 points from this window? Did they draw their first one? I mean, what was the?
They were
Canada's first game.
Canada played. I'm like blanking on
9 points. I think they were perfect though. 9 points in this window, which is unbelievable to go 9 points in a window, especially.
That's right. They where is it? Yeah, they beat Honduras 2-0 in Honduras.
Oh, that's right. They scored on that own goal in the beginning from Tejan Buchanan. Yeah, convincing result against Honduras.
And they haven't given up any goals either to us, to Honduras, and currently to El Salvador. I mean, that's just really speaks to how much quality they have on both sides of the ball. So
I mean, if you were them and you're looking at this at the beginning of this window, you're like 6 points, 7 points, maybe, but obviously the confidence they have, they may have been saying 9 points and we're in, 9 points and we're in.
This
obviously
is their best window.
But yeah,
this is their best window. They don't even have Alphonso Davies.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Like Canada's cheating now. They're cheating.
Their CNT podcast is talking about, is it better to bring Alphonso Davies off the bench? Is he our super sub? The same way that we're talking about Christian Pulisic, because they don't need him. 9 points is perfect for them. And by the way, before Jimmy, we get to some of our closing thoughts and a few other things. I want to roll this little quick little teaser that Des has ready for us. So everyone, take a look.
Here we go.
Jumping around and the rump is around. It's a comfortable night. Let's fly.
Touchdown! Unbelievable! Incredible!
I think we both know there's more to it than that.
This is going to be a good thing for everybody.
Hello, Master Chief.
Here we go, yeah, come on. Here we go.
That always gets me hyped, by the way. I want more Clifford the Big Red Dog in my life. Let's go. That is a proper ad.
It is a proper ad. It is a proper ad. It's a fun one. And
I'm
by the
excited.
way,
I'm excited.
The reason why I get excited about that is that tonight we're not doing a giveaway, but we've been doing a lot of giveaways lately for Paramount Plus subscriptions. A year subscription to Paramount Plus, depending on the plan that you choose. It's a $100 gift card. We're going to keep those things going as long as you guys are participating and doing the things that we ask, like liking videos and subscribing and all those types of things. It allows us to go back to the people, the fine people at Paramount Plus, and say, hey, it's time for another giveaway. And
ooh, Heath froze for me, but doesn't he look handsome?
They seem to be up of those fun. Any final thoughts for you on this match day? Obviously, we're going to do a wrap up of the entire window. There's still matches being played right now, but for the U.S. in itself, one of the questions that we talked about after the Canada game was, what's the identity? Or at least I was saying, like, what's the identity? What do they stand for? What's the character of this team? Like, what are the building blocks that they're building this foundation on? Do you think that we saw more of that, albeit against a weaker opponent? It just seemed much more convincing. And again, hard to judge, but do you, I guess, are we better now than we were this morning?
Yes, I think so for sure. I think we demonstrated some mental fortitude. I know that you talked to some of the players prior and they seemed calm, even though they knew that it was a tense and anxious game and could add a lot of pressure on, not necessarily undue pressure, but pressure that that they had to deal with and work through. And I thought they did it. And scoring early, I think it makes such a big difference in the game. Canada has been doing that to great effect. I know it took them to the 68th minute to score against El Salvador tonight, but when you score early, it just changes your approach and it changes obviously the approach of the opponent. And that was really important for us, especially because we haven't been scoring goals in the first half, which then continues to add a lot of pressure. So we got to relax and play a little bit. And I thought the guys did a great job of managing the game, right, Heath? Because we talk a lot about in-game management, or if we don't on camera, we talk about it off camera quite a bit. Some players and teams know how to manage a game and others don't. And I thought tonight we had a very professional performance. I thought it was very mature. I thought we handled ourselves very well despite the circumstances. And we did what we had to do. And I think that is a hallmark of a good team. And long may that continue, especially into this next window, so that we can qualify. Now, my final thoughts overall, I wanted 7 points out of this. A 9 was always a pipe dream, and to ask for 9 is ridiculous, I think.
Well,
you worked towards it. Canada got 9. Well, fair play to them. But I
they're
thought
on their way to getting 9 at least.
7 felt more realistic. But at the very least, we had to get 6. We had to win our home games. You and I both know that if you win your home games, you put yourself in a very good position to qualify for the World Cup, because you're probably going to get a draw or two away from home, and that should be enough. We did what we had to do. Yes, there's still people that have a lot of questions that still need some answers. We're a part of that group as well. Maybe we don't have as many questions as others, but we're there. And actually one thing, and I want to get your final thoughts, it's probably might reopen everything back up. But what did you think about Greg Berhalter taking a selfie in the 82nd minute when the game was still on with some fans? Because I feel like if the John Herdman had done that in the Canada game, we would have been like, what the is this guy doing? How disrespectful is that to us? That the coach thinks he can go take photos with the fans. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I know some people were talking about it as well in the chat.
I mean, on one hand, it's pretty rad. On the other hand, like that level of confidence or swag, so to speak. On the other hand, you're like, dude, I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Yes, we're well up on them. Yes, it's a freezing conditions, and there's a break in the play, right? But to go around the corner, I don't know if they're fans. They could have been family. They could have been anybody. But to take a picture
but still,
in the middle of the game, there's just sort of this breaking the fourth wall of like respect for the opponent, gamesmanship, all these things that you're like capturing this moment while others are obviously suffering, I thought was a little bit out of touch. Now, I'm obviously going to give him his opportunity to speak on it. I'm sure in the post game,
listen,
may have been
I think you and I are both,
but I just think it's disrespectful. If I was on the other side, dude, I'd be livid if I saw that picture.
I'd be livid as well. I mean, I think
Globetrotters came into town and rolled their circus through, and they're doing all their fun things. That's what it would feel like to me as a player on the other side.
Listen, I think you and I, if we ever got into coaching in a meaningful way, as personable as we are, and as much media training and experience that we have, I don't even think we would do that. Even though we have that inclination, we would understand that it could go viral and people would talk about it or whatever. I don't even think we would do that because it disrespects the game. It disrespects. I can't believe he did it. I can't believe. I mean, yes, I want to hear what he has to say about it, but I and then also U.S. Soccer is the one promoting it. Like they put it out there that he makes time for the fans or whatever. I don't know if they should have done that either. There's some decisions, I don't know. Greg Berhalter seems.
This comment is great. Todd said the dude sent Weston to Italy for being unprofessional, and that just felt again time and place, right? You're 8 minutes off of being able to go and take that picture with that fan or your family or whoever that was. It just seemed like a bit of an odd time. But again, I want to hear his thoughts on what he thought about that, because optically, not a great look in terms of respect for the game and putting the game above everything else. I mean, and would you do that if it was 0-0 against Honduras? Probably.
What if it was a friendly? A friendly, you're like,
yeah, friendly, fine. It's a little bit
friendly.
More.
This is a World Cup, a must-win game.
But what if it's 0-0, Jimmy? What if it's 0-0? What if it's 0-0?
There's no chance. 0-0. Zero chance. Would he ever? No, not in 100 million years.
Right.
He'd be trying to figure out how he's going to solve problems. He'd be with his coaching staff. It's real. What's interesting is it was really unlike Greg to do that. He's like loosened up in a way that.
Well, that's why
I don't know, man. Maybe he wasn't wearing a hat. Maybe it was like he was getting hypothermia. I just don't understand what his thought process was. And it makes me go back to the Canada quotes afterwards that was the most dominant performance we've ever had away from home to never have get point. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah.
It's like 2 games in a row now. I'm like, what is he doing? And what is he saying? But it's getting us talking about him. So if that's what he wants, he's getting it.
Wow. Well, Jimmy, I don't have the answers to that. Hopefully he speaks on that soon. He seems pretty candid at the moment in terms of answering questions or direct questions that we have, because he's been in the firing range for a while. And I think
he has.
We hold this team to an extremely high standard because of the quality of players that they have, because of what we expect from the national team. I think over the last years, we've seen this team rise to the occasion of being fighters and showing that fighting spirit for the crest over everything. We've seen them go through the ebb and flow so far of this World Cup qualifying campaign. We know that we're a step closer to a World Cup. We still have a long ways to go in terms of performances, but credit when credit's due. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. They put together a comprehensive and convincing win against this flattened and deflated Honduran side, and I think that deserves some credit.
It does, 100%. So I'm glad we got to hang out and talk about it, Heath, along with our amazing community. Thank you guys so much for the support. We appreciate you.
Yes, of course. And that brings it into our January, I almost said transfer window, but our January World Cup qualifying window. Obviously, there's still a few games remaining in terms of minutes left in this
we're covering
window.
That tomorrow, Heath.
Yeah, we're covering that tomorrow. But make sure you're following Qué Golazo podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever platform you choose to listen to your audio, and leave us a rating and a review. We just gave you a free podcast, and the least you can do is show us some love. We show you guys some love. You show some love. We just become a big, huge family. And on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. And of course, as usual, for myself, Jimmy Conrad, Des Norris, and everybody that contributes to the Qué Golazo podcast, we thank you, and we will see you guys soon.
Later, USA!